This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Motor City Sports Rant is brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Listeners of this podcast can save 30% off the first year of an annual subscription by going and visiting theathletic.com/DSP. Don't miss out. All the hosts here on the network, we read The Athletic every single day. Why? Great in-depth features. They got writers covering all the major teams, and this fall, they even started covering the Michigan Wolverines and the Michigan State Spartans. Great in-depth articles every single day. They provide something very different than the other major newspapers. So definitely become a subscriber like all the hosts here on the network. Go check out theathletic.com/DSP. Subscribe and save 30% off.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Welcome in, everybody. You're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I hope everybody's week has gotten off to a great start. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Jason Jarvie's not here with me today. He is celebrating a birthday, so he went to work today, and after work, he went to celebrate with his family, and I said, look, Jason, you don't got to come in. I know you're interested. You want to talk about the Detroit Lions. You want to rant. You want to become upset. I said, look, man, it's all good. Go to the family. I got this. I can hold the fort down. And most importantly, I got my compadre. I got my sidekick, my partner in crime for this week, Vito Geronimo Churko. What up, brother? What's happening?
You know what? I'm doing well. And when you said it was free to come here and sub in for Jason Jarvie, I said, I got to do it. I jumped at it. I jump at anything free. So I said, you know what? A free opportunity here. I'm going to join you in the podcast studio on a Monday when I'm not here typically. I was going to do something else, actually, for the reason why I was here originally. But it worked out. And a great opportunity. And let's discuss the Lions and how bad they were. Not as bad as week one, though, obviously, Doc.
Some people have radio shows and they call themselves the odd couple. But I think you and I, with the talks, when I listen back to shows like Two Bad Hombres, our banter on Tigers Talk, I really feel like, you know what? I like working with Vito as much as I like working with Jason, Adam, and anybody else. And I'm like, you know what? I really like Vito, and maybe I'll push for more stuff that you and I can do together, market ourselves. Two Bad Hombres about to record the Motor City Sports Rant, and you know what we're going to talk about. We're going to recap the Detroit Lions. We're going to recap LeGarrette Blount. Maybe standing up for Matthew Stafford could be a rallying cry for this Lions team because they obviously played better after that hit, after he stood up for Matthew Stafford. We'll talk about, obviously, Stafford and his woes, missing open receivers, and you're with me here for the opening segment here before you get off and handle your business. But one thing I wanted to start with, it never really occurred to me that, the Lions could lose me as a fan. But yesterday on Sunday was a beautiful day. Just nice weather, right? And the weather was hot, and it's about 4 o'clock, and you're really going, is it really worth it for me to sit and watch these 3 hours? I know that it's going to generate content. I know the fans of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network are going to be engaged. They're going to want to talk about the game. They might want to leave a voicemail, and I'll remind everybody where you can go leave a voicemail on our network 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, ranting and raving about Detroit sports, and you can say whatever you want. We're going to play a couple, and they're going to be fun, and I'm definitely excited to display that feature. But 4 o'clock hit, and a part of me goes, I kind of know what's going to happen. I mean, I called the score out to be 28-19. I felt like it was going to be a close game. But then you go and you watch the course of the game, Vito, and it's the same game you've basically seen now for the last 15 years. Penalties, mistakes. When there's a good play by the Lions, it's usually taken back by a flag. The Lions don't capitalize on key moments. They make silly mistakes. I guess for me going into the game, I wanted to see the competition between Stafford and Garoppolo. And for the better part of 3 quarters, Garoppolo played a little bit better. Jimmy G didn't play all that great, but he played better than Stafford. All of a sudden, after the hit in the 3rd quarter, the Lions played a lot better in that 4th quarter, but it was too little too late. And it just, after the game, 7:30, you sit back and you go, man, I could have went outside, played with the kids. I could have done a lot more enjoyable things because I had seen that game, Vito, the way that game shook out for the better part of the last 2 decades. And then 5 years doing this podcast, I had seen that game the way it shook out way too many times, man. There's definitely a law of diminishing return in terms of the Detroit Lions. It's not as fun anymore. I'm not even passionate about the losses. It's like, I already knew they're going to lose. They're going to give up a lot of points. They're going to mess up. It just wasn't as fun for me watching the game, and it sucks. It's fun to interact with the fans, but it just wasn't fun anymore.
Well, finally somebody stood up for Matt Stafford. His own line really hasn't been doing that all this season. Now, I don't think it's a major weakness for the Lions, but LeGarrette Blount hitting the guy that hit Matthew Stafford there, I think that really motivated the troops, right? It fired them up. It sparked some energy. The first burst of energy that I saw to the Lions as a unit, as a team all season long, so that was great to see. And LeGarrette Blount definitely sparked it. But it was a little bit too late. It's like the Lions tease you. How many years now, Doc, for you as a fan? You're 39 years, not young, old, I like to say. And how long have they teased you now? With these attempts to win, they've got talent, they've got a franchise passer for the first time in my lifetime, the best quarterback they've had since Bobby Lane, perhaps, and still they can't win. So if they can't win with Matthew Stafford, who are they going to ever win with? Maybe they're just cursed. Maybe they are legitimately cursed. And we try to beat the curse and get rid of it with George Lopez and that special at that church. Where was that at? I don't know where the heck that was now, in the middle of nowhere. And it didn't happen. Look at this team, 0-2, and that's a game in week 2, even on the road against San Fran, that you should have won, because Jimmy G's overhyped. And that San Fran team is not, I think, what people thought it would be and projected it to be. That team as a whole was overhyped. So the Lions, a good Lions team gets that victory. The thing is, have we ever seen a good Lions team? And that wasn't a good Lions team good enough, for sure, in week 2.
How'd you enjoy the game? Did you watch it? Were you frustrated seeing all the mistakes? I mean, now, for the better part of 5 years, since I've been part of this network, now you've been part of it for 3, it's been the same old thing where in years past, they would start off slow. They wouldn't come back and play well until the fourth quarter. Matthew Stafford has all these comebacks, but when you watch a football game, you don't have to come back on all these teams. You can start out with a lead and play from ahead, but it's just really frustrating to see more of the same. Undisciplined play, not playing to the best of your capabilities, and making a bunch of mistakes. I mean, 100 yards and penalties, and you can't earn a 100-yard rusher. So how did you enjoy the game? With family? How are you enjoying the Detroit Lions? With friends? Do you just kind of go, oh, here we go again, and not let it bother you? How passionate are you at 25 years old watching the Lions?
I'm done already. But no, I'm not completely done. But you said enjoy. Well, don't use that word with me, because I don't enjoy watching the Lions. There is no such thing as enjoying watching the Lions for me. Now, I had my dad and my brother watching the game. We don't watch it together, though. It's not a collective effort for us as a family at the Delta Resort, as I like to call it, when we watch a Lions game. So everybody watches it in their own room, watches it sparingly, and honestly, I don't watch the whole entire game because I can't. I'm fed up to a large extent. Now, will I tune in here and there? Yes. Like I said, sparingly I tune in. My dad gave up a long time ago. He's 61. He can't even deal with the Lions at this point. He is totally fed up with the Lions. I'm almost there at 25. How sad is that for me as a 25-year-old? And there's other 25-year-olds. There are definitely other millennials that are around my age or at 25 years old, years young, as I like to say for myself, that are fed up completely and do not even tune into the Lions. And I'm almost there, Doc. I'm fed up to a large extent, and I tune in sparingly at this point, just because I've seen this already. It's SOL, the same old Lions, once again, Doc.
Now, I spoke earlier on the voicemails, and that's kind of the theme that a lot of the voicemails said was, why? Why invest in the Lions? They won't get the message until fans don't show up, until they become irrelevant. So let's peek into a couple and react to some. If you want to leave a voicemail 24 hours a day, 248-579-8686. That's 248-579-8686. Now, Vito's not going to answer the phone. It's going to be automated. Just leave a voicemail, say whatever you want, react to the Lions, react to the Michigan Wolverines, Michigan State Spartans, anything at all in the world of Detroit sports. Feel free. 248-579-8686. Let's get to a couple on this edition of the Motor City Sports Rant. This is the voicemails.
Hey, I just wanted to call and ask anybody who's listening why they continue to give this team the time of day. I stopped watching live Lions games back in 2008. It's been a lot better for my health. I don't really get angry anymore at Lions games. I get just disappointed in the Lions now. And I'm not going to be developing any gray hair or stomach ulcers as a result. And I just don't understand anybody or why they would go to Ford Field and pay actual money that they've earned from working to watch the Lions play. Next week's going to be very ugly against the Patriots. And I'm just trying to get myself inside the head of people who are idiots who are going to spend hundreds of dollars on parking and tickets and food at Ford Field to watch the Lions get obliterated yet again. Same old Lions, hashtag same old Lions, 60 years in a row.
Hey, this is Larry from East Lansing. I'm calling because Matt Patricia is leading the Detroit Lions in the wrong direction. As you know, as an African-American male, I look at Jim Caldwell being fired and just say this is another situation of African-Americans being disrespected in the coaching realm of NFL football. He did very well as the head coach of Detroit, and he led them to the playoffs, and he was fired because he had one bad season, one terrible season. But we get Matt Patricia, who has zero head coaching experience in, and he can't run an offense with Matthew Stafford. And, it's just one of those situations where if Detroit wanted to be smart, they would just cut ties with Patricia, pay the money for the rest of the year, and get him out of there and try to salvage the season, especially with the Green Bay Minnesota tie. You're still in the season, even though you haven't won a game. So let's see Matt Patricia replaced. Let's see the implicit racism in NFL eradicated. And let's get rid of Matt Patricia. He has no offensive scheme whatsoever. Jim Caldwell had an offensive scheme, led him to the playoffs, and was fired because he had one underwhelming season. I think in 2 games we know what Matt Patricia is. He's a phony. He's a fake. He hid under Bill Belichick's reign with the Patriots and got rewarded for it. And after 2 games, he has just proved to be inept.
Big Lair, let me just tell you this. After 2 games, Matty Patty isn't going anywhere. So you got to deal with them. And by the way, we've talked about this before about Jim Caldwell, whether or not it was racism for them getting rid of him when they did. Well, they went 9-7 last year. They weren't good enough. That was mediocrity. And they wanted to change things and really revamp the roster and do a complete overhaul, which they haven't done yet. But then they want to get to a new regime, a new system, and a different kind of playing football. And I guess the Patriot way of playing football with Matt Patricia. So Jim Caldwell wasn't cutting the mustard seed. He wasn't nearly good enough. They cut ties with him, and guess what? He wasn't cutting the mustard seed, wasn't doing enough to help the Lions win games when they were still trying to really win games last year, which this year maybe they're not. I mean, look at this team so far. But when they were last year and such, guess what? They weren't winning enough games. They should have won maybe 10, and maybe the year before should have done more, and in past seasons with Jim Caldwell. So it wasn't racism. That wasn't that. It was a guy not getting the job done nearly enough, Doc.
And I want to respond to the first voicemail. I'm getting to that point where I care a little bit less. I am, not as passionate. I did wonder. I still watch. I still get into it. And it's just frustrating in that at this point in time, the Lions play the same game over and over and over. Now, before you get out of here, I know you're on your way. I have to ask you about Matthew Stafford. He played another rough game. Now, obviously, after the hit, people that are critical of Stafford will say, look, again, meaningless stats when the game's out of hand. It was 30-17. And so, great, you get 2 touchdowns and you make it a closer game. Fine, but it's really meaningless. You really didn't have a legitimate chance to win, according to most people. So you're 25 years old. You've seen him now for the past 5 years in terms of where he's going. Do you have faith? Is your faith level in Matthew Stafford high? Or are you saying, you know what, he's more like Alex Smith, he's more like Carson Palmer, and not a guy that's going to get you wins, and maybe you're paying a guy that's not going to get you anything? Where do you stand on Matthew Stafford after, being part of this network and seeing what he can deliver? I'm not seeing it. It seems like another wasted year, and he's going to be 30, 31 years old without any playoff resume or anything to show for it.
Well, the only thing I have more faith in is the Lord. My Lord and Savior, than Matthew Stafford. I mean, I have more faith in Matthew Stafford than the long-term success of this podcast network.
No,
okay,
really?
I'm joking. Now, Stafford, honestly, when I'm being honest with you, which I am right now, I've liked him in the past. This year, he hasn't been good enough. Week 1, he was horrible. I mean, that was backup, third string. That was practice squad quarterback play. So not of the caliber of a franchise passer guy that has been labeled as an elite franchise passer at times, or at least a top 10 to 12 quarterback in the league. He hasn't displayed that as of yet. Now, in week 2, he was better, but, a valiant effort and making it close in the end isn't good enough. When, once again, Bob Quinn, when he fired Jim Caldwell, he said that Jim Caldwell wasn't allowing the team to win enough. Well, if they're trying to win this year, guess what? They're doing a horrible job of it. I don't see anything that really resembles a winning product right now. And then going into week 3 against New England, even at home, but on Sunday Night Football, in prime time, in front of a national TV audience, good luck winning that game and even coming close in that contest, in my opinion, Doc.
This Sunday you feel like is going to be really tough to beat New England, especially coming after a loss. I mean, the Jags played a really decent game. It's going to be tough this Sunday at home, but Are you encouraged at all? At least the team didn't quit on Sunday on the road in a place they haven't won since the 70s. They played a little bit better.
Good,
but obviously,
how about what does that lead to eventually, right? Aren't we sick and tired of that talk of, they're looking better. They're getting better. I don't want just getting better. I want to see wins now. You want to see results in the win column, not in the loss column, and then a good effort with the loss. I want to see a win. I don't care about the effort anymore with the Lions. And nobody should. We should expect wins. And this year, I don't think you're going to see many of them. I'm thinking 6 to 7 wins, tops. Maybe 6 now, Doc.
I can definitely agree with you. What we want is we want to see the level of play be, a lot better than what it's been. Fine, you can go out there and lose a 3-point game, but play a lot better. Clean up the mistakes, 100 yards and penalties. Make the plays that you're supposed to make. I mean, Theo Riddick missing balls.
Oh, like 2 balls, easy balls in his chest, right? You can't be missing those passes, Doc.
Exactly. The conservative play call. What's going on with JBC? It just seems like right now that we're struggling so hard just to be mediocre. And when are we going to turn the page? That's the biggest question everybody wants to know is, when are the Detroit Lions going to turn the page and play a better brand of football for a consistent period of time? I mean, I think we're due for a 13-3 season at some point, but we don't have no talent. We don't have enough talent to get the job done. And it seems like whatever system is put in place, whether it be a Jim Caldwell, an offensive guy who's kind of gives them rest days and is really a guy that used rest to help the team, to a guy like Patricia who's trying to hammer the team, it just seems like whatever is thrown up against the wall doesn't work. And there's no light at the end of the tunnel. That's the biggest thing that I think fans get frustrated at, is where's the light at the end of the tunnel? Nobody can honestly say, unless you're a fanatic, really say that, yeah, I see a trajectory of winning for this franchise. You just don't see it. You see more of the same. Mistakes, games that are similar to what we saw on Sunday. And that's the most disheartening thing that I can leave you with, is that it's just going to be it's going to be a 2018 season where it's going to be pain. Lots of hurt, lots of mistakes, and there is a legitimate chance, Vito, this 2018 team starts 0-5.
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to just end in shambles. And do you need some tissue? The Lions faithful out there need tissues, because they're going to start 0-3 for sure, no doubt. And with Matt Stafford, if he's a franchise passer, which I believe he is, shouldn't you be winning 8 games at least a year? I mean, you should be winning at least 8. Now, the rest of the roster isn't talented enough, okay, to win 13, to win 10 games. But, man, this team is in shambles, is going to lose a ton this year, might even lose 10 games, and that's a product of the lack of talent evaluating and smart acquisitions made by Bob Quinn, the Lions general manager. And Jim Bob Cooter, JBC, as you call him, he can go by the wayside right now. He should no longer be the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, and them retaining him, that was a nice thing for Matt Stafford, trying to appease him. Guess what? No longer try to appease Matt Stafford, because look at Stafford's play. Hasn't been great and good enough for a franchise passer. And Jim Bob Cooter, this conservative approach, it isn't working for the Lions. Yeah, and I don't think it's ever going to click and work for the Lions offensively. So get rid of JBC right now. That's the one move you can make right now that is feasible, that can happen. Where Matt Patricia, guess what, big layer, once again, to that caller before, he isn't going to go anywhere. He's not getting fired after 2 weeks or 3, or after year 1 even. Maybe after next season if they really stumble out of the gate and fail to win 9 games. But guess what? Matt Patricia isn't going anywhere. The one guy you can get rid of, which I think they should, is Jim Bob Cooter, Doc.
Vito, great to have you in for this segment. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Motor City Sports Rant. Follow Vito at Vito Jerome, up-and-coming reporter, great podcaster, great interviewer, and definitely a valued member of the team. Definitely heads the Detroit Tigers coverage for the network. Follow Vito. It's a good follow. Thanks for coming in, Vito.
Thank you. Adios.
Yeah, Vito is exactly right. I think the move that likely is going to be made if the Lions don't perform well on offense is JBC is going to be let go. And you look at it and you say, what head coach retains the offensive coordinator of the former regime? I feel like if you're coming in, broom everybody out, start with your own guys, instill your own philosophy. And right now, early criticism of Matt Patricia can legitimately be laid upon him for some of the coordinators that he's brought on here. I mean, you keep JBC, who now, the last few games of last year and the early part of this year, hasn't done a great job in terms of the offense. The offense seems to be very stale, very predictable. I mean, when you have the Jets saying that we knew everything that was coming, that indicates that you're running the same plays that you ran at the end of last year. To not have the ability to adapt, to not have the ability to, okay, there's a stated goal, earn a 100-yard rusher. That has to be a goal. And you're trying, you're handing the ball off play after play after play, and you're even handing it off on 3rd and long. You're trying to establish a running game, trying to establish an attitude, but there hasn't been that level of success with anybody. I mean, you bring in LeGarrette Blount, He's doing a decent job. It seems like he's a leader on that team, but really everybody would say, why not utilize the rookie a lot more? He seems to have the ability to move the chains. Why are you limiting him? Put him on the damn field. Let him learn this game and let him try and be productive. The offensive line, I mean, you have to really take a critical look at what is the scheme going on with this offensive line. You have to develop a system. Everybody that will take a look at the Lions' offensive line will say it hasn't worked. Matthew Stafford is running for his life, and maybe the singular cause of why he has regressed. He hasn't played well. Something is definitely wrong with Matthew Stafford, and everybody's starting to notice, oh my gosh, there is a significant issue going on with the quarterback at the Detroit Lions. Matthew Stafford doesn't look the same. Maybe he was rattled from that game versus the Jets where he was rocked. Maybe he's not the same guy. Maybe now he's developing happy feet, because basically in the NFL, if you get that extra half of a second, that's all it takes for a quarterback to be able to read a play and deliver the football. But if you don't have it and your offensive line is not that good and you lose half a second, I mean, the speed at which these defenders can close down on a play is unbelievable. And so I would not be definitely surprised if, off the record, he would say, man, yeah, I'm scared to death because of the fact that these defenders are barreling down on guys that really aren't that good. I mean, Taylor Decker, again, had a decent game, but struggled with a penalty. And obviously Matthew Stafford, in some situations, has also made it hard, made his life difficult with some of the plays that he decided to run. I mean, as a quarterback in your 10th year, the biggest mistake that you could make is turning the football over. That fumble was absolutely unacceptable. You can't turn the ball over like that, especially when all you have to do is fling the ball out of bounds. But what happens is, and what some of our supporters who follow us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast say is, look, when you're running for your life and when you know that your defense is really not that good, not that efficient, you try to do too much. And Matthew Stafford has to feel the burden of trying to carry this organization on its back. He has to feel it because he's paid the most. He is the face of the franchise. He is the guy that everybody points to when things go well, and he's the guy that everyone points to when things don't go well. So for a guy like Matthew Stafford, I can understand that he wants to do too much, and he's trying to zing the ball all over the place, sometimes throwing into windows where he should not be. Now, in terms of the interceptions, that was limited versus the 49ers. He definitely came on. He emerged in the third and fourth quarter to help the team, come back. But that's a time when defenses naturally slow down. When it's 30-13, what happens is defenses naturally, what they do is they try and run prevent. They keep everything in front of you, let the time go off the clock. And so those numbers that you see, the majority of his big numbers are the result of padding his stats, and that's legitimate. It's important to start the game off that way. And that's what I think the biggest complaint that people who follow us said was, the Lions are most efficient in the 2-minute drill. They are unbelievable. They can score points. They go up tempo. Now, can these offensive linemen and an offense sustain that? Probably not. That's why more teams don't do it. But when you have a quarterback like Stafford and the offense seems to run well at an up-tempo pace, all we're saying is maybe you got to do it 2 or 3 more possessions in the first half and get it going. And you got to do whatever you can to earn that momentum for the Detroit Lions. And so now the Detroit Lions sit at 0-2, and everybody knows if you look, and you go and look, the percentage chance that the Lions can make the postseason after starting a year 0-2 is not good. It's not that great at all. People that start the year 0-2 tend to be a team that is not that good and will likely struggle. And now the biggest test is, and I'm so nervous for this upcoming Sunday because this fan base is not happy. This fan base that's going to be drinking all day on a Sunday, it's going to be tailgating outside at Eastern Market, around Ford Field. They're going to be inebriated. They're going to be definitely vocal. This is an opportunity for the Detroit Lions to go out there and make a statement, too, because the New England Patriots are going to be pissed. They're going to be frustrated as all hell. And we all know what Bill Belichick likes to do. He likes to embarrass his former coordinators. But I don't know, part of me feels like the Lions, after that performance versus San Fran, are going to play a better game. They're going to be in the game. I don't feel like they're going to get blown out. But are they going to win the game? I feel like the fans, for each mistake that is made, are going to boo loudly, and it could get out of hand should the New England Patriots put the hurting on the Detroit Lions. Let's say, for example, another key play is marred by a penalty. Let's say Stafford throws a couple picks. He doesn't look right. Let's say it's 3rd and 18, and they're down by 3, and they end up handing the ball off to Kerryon Johnson. That place is going to rain down on boos because the fans are ready to move on from Stafford. I really believe it. They're ready to say, look, they're now more and more people are willing to entertain the notion of, hey, go draft a quarterback. At the very least, you can keep Stafford and pay him, but develop the next guy. Get the next guy on board. Because even if Stafford does have success, you still got to look ahead to the future of the franchise. And the future of the franchise is not Matt Castle. It's not Jake Rudock. You have to at least prepare for the future, so go get the next guy. And you can then say, you know what, if Stafford is not the guy, if Stafford in 2 or 3 years does not finally at least earn one playoff win, you can at least get him in a system and say, you know what, this can be a guy that can learn from Matthew Stafford at least the basics of zinging the ball over the place and offense. But here's the problem. Vito said earlier before he left, fire JBC. That's another system coming in. And I mean, that's why consistency is important. But guess what? When you have a played-out offense, it's always good for the first couple games, but the thing that I'm observing, and I said it, I mean, you can go back and type in Detroit Podcast Neutered. I feel like the Detroit Lions know that if Matthew Stafford zings the ball all over the place, a la Patrick Mahomes, that he's going to throw picks, that he's not accurate with the deep pass, and so they tailored an offense that suits his needs, which is 5 yards, dink and dunk, screen passes, JBC, Jim Caldwell got together, and what was successful under Jim Caldwell? A conservative, boring offense. I mean, Adam and I would scream to the high heavens, throw the ball deep, and Caldwell would dismiss it in press conferences when he was asked, and he would say that you have to play to what the defense is giving you. We run an offense, we try and throw it deep, and they just wouldn't do it at that high of a clip. But now you look at it and you go, Jim Bob Cooter has this guy, Matthew Stafford, that's a gunslinger. And you see a guy like Patrick Mahomes, 10 touchdowns, 6 on Sunday, and he's throwing the ball all over the place. You see these prolific offenses that are predicated on throwing the ball. Why don't they do that with Stafford? I understand that your offensive line is not conducive for that, but take a chance deep. I mean, what happens is when you throw the ball deep, it helps the running game to at least kind of put a little bit of doubt in the defense, whether it's going to be a run pass. That's why this whole run pass option has really taken off in the NFL. You have to confuse the defense. Right now, defenses pretty much can figure out the Detroit Lions. It's not that hard. You know what likely is going to come. You're going to have screen passes, dink and dunk, a couple run plays here and there up the middle. It's not exotic run plays. It's not like you have a breakaway, a guy that's on the offense that you fear. I mean, even Kerryon Johnson, he's okay, but he hasn't, busted one for like 80 yards. When's the last explosive running play that you saw, from the 20-yard line and then went 80 yards? When's the last exciting offensive play that you saw? It's not there. And why is that happening? And I do believe that offense and Jim Bob Cooter and everybody that looks at it says, yeah, if we have Stafford zing the ball all over the place, he is going to be worse than Brett Favre. He's going to turn the ball over. So they constructed an offense that neutered a guy that you're paying $27 million to. And I sat here and screamed to the highest of heavens to anybody that would hear me, to the thousands, the masses on Twitter. I said, you got to question that decision. And everybody said, oh, no, a franchise quarterback. You got a guy that now everybody's going to be paid more than him. Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be paid way more than Matthew Stafford. But Matthew Stafford's not worth $27 million. But the argument was, well, you got to pay a guy that's the head of your organization, that's the head of the face of your franchise. Why? If you don't believe that he's going to win, if you don't believe he's going to get you to the postseason, you're willing to pay a guy for 9, his 10th, 11th, 12th, 13 years with no playoff wins? What is going on? That is really throwing good money after bad. It's a terrible thing to look at. And I think that Matthew Stafford's stealing money. Now, he's better than any other Lions quarterback, but that doesn't mean that that's the comparison point. That's not the starting point. I don't compare Vito to other guys on the network. I compare Vito to Mike Valeni. I compare Vito to national host Jim Rome. I want him to get to that level. I don't compare him to me. I go, no, just because he might be the best podcaster at the network or one of the top 2, I don't mean that's great. I go, Vito, do more. Compete against the best. I don't pay Vito based upon what he's done at the network. I want to pay him compared to, look, can you bring in revenue? Can you do this? Can you draw in, 5-figure downloads every single week? Can you deliver? That's what you compare him to. I don't compare him to other guys here on the network. That'd be silly based on compensation. And so that's what happened with Matthew Stafford. He got paid based upon the fact that, Joey Harrington was here and guys that, were awful. It's embarrassing. What, Stoney Case was here, quarterback in the Lions. That's what you're paying Stafford $27 million for? No playoff wins? And so he got lucky in that opportunity, but it's embarrassing because you need results. And another season, and everyone's fearful, and a lot of people are angry. Another season's going to come and go, and the Detroit Lions are not going to be in the postseason, and it sucks. And the Detroit Lions are staring down 0-3, and then you got to play Green Bay. Is that really what's going to happen? Now, can they turn it around? if they clean up the mistakes, if they can be a little bit more creative on offense, yeah, I could see this team maybe getting back to 2-2 real quickly. I mean, you can get and knock out Aaron Rodgers. You can get to Tom Brady. I mean, the guy is almost 42 years old. Get to him. You have the ability to play well, and you have the ability to play well on the national stage at home. I feel like it's going to be a close game. It's going to be close versus the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots probably are going to do enough to win the game, but I do see strides, hopefully, that in another week of preparation that this Detroit Lions team can do a lot better. Now, there were definitely some things you could say, okay, you know what? The team did not quit. They're not going to lay down and be a team that just goes away and quits on Matt Patricia. They have jobs. They have professionalism. They're not going to go like Vontae Davis and quit at halftime. What an amazing story there. Google that. That's one of the most amazing stories you might hear in the history of the National Football League, a guy quitting at halftime like, I'm out. But I do believe that here's the problem, though. You got injuries. You got Darius Slay, concussion. You got Glover Quinn, might be a step slow. You got guys like Jared Davis who are kind of struggling at that position to learn. You got Tease Tabor, who looked absolutely awful. You got Amir Abdullah and Ashawn Robinson, who aren't even contributing to the team. So it's frustrating, but you did see some plays from Tracy Walker, from Deshaun Hand, from guys that were brought in from other organizations in free agency. You saw some signs of light, but it's not bright enough to make you believe. That's the biggest thing, is that you see it sporadically. You see it for a series here and there. But can the Lions put together 60 minutes consistently over the course of 4 or 5 weeks? The answer's got to be no. The answer's got to be no, that you don't think that the Lions can put together drives and play well on defense. That's the most disheartening thing for me, and I'll leave everybody with that, is that defense is horrible. That defense gives up big plays on special teams and on defense. It seems like, okay, if Matt Patricia is going to come in and send his message, why are you bringing in a guy that's like 100 years old as a defensive coordinator? What has Paul Pasqualoni done to revolutionize defense? And as a head coach, maybe you are specializing on the defense, but what is your philosophy? Bend, don't break is great. I mean, if you can execute and not give up plays that are going to be massive and you don't give up touchdowns, but guess what? When you emphasize bend, don't break, and you don't have a guy that's going to pressure the quarterback consistently, then you're going to see what you saw versus the Niners, that there's going to be drives where you give up touchdowns, there's going to be big plays, there's going to be situations in which you hold at the worst possible time. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo was sacked, which was great to see. It was great to see Kennard get in there and pressure him. It was great to see the pocket collapse for Jimmy G, but that was mostly due to him. He holds the ball way too long. Anybody could see it's like 1, 2, 3, throw the ball, but he surveys, read 2, 3, 4, and sometimes goes back to it. That guy needs to improve, and I was disappointed at the level of his play because prior to the year, I thought he was going to dominate the Lions. I thought that he was going to play a lot better game, and it was basically a wash. But I want to say this. I just want to see improvement, at least on the defensive side of the ball. Play better. Make better plays. Stop making the mistakes. 100 yards and penalties plus, not having a 100-yard rusher again, and maybe another 2 years before we have a 100-yard rusher. This network might be bought and sold 3 times over before the Lions have a 100-yard rusher. Vito might be married and have 5 kids before the Lions have a 100-yard rusher. He might show up here with gold chains and looking like Conor McGregor Fitzgerald, before the Lions have a 100-yard rusher. I may grow here. I may look like Chase Winovich before the Detroit Lions have another 100-yard rusher. I mean, come on. I might be on the ticket before the Lions have a 100-yard rusher. Adam might be on the ticket before the Lions have a 100-yard rusher. Adam might be a program director before the Lions have any success. When's it going to take place? I mean, come on. We make big goals and we try to achieve them. The Lions make the same goals and can't achieve it. And it just seems like the big thing is the Lions spin their wheels like a hamster. That's what they do year after year, game after game. I just want to feel like on Sunday, likely I'm going to go to a bar. I'm going to sit with the fellas. I'm going to try and enjoy it, have a cocktail, maybe have some food, a burger. And I just want to feel like, okay, you know what? I want to be able to enjoy a game because already what I did was in 2 weeks, I'll tell you, I scheduled clients at the practice at 1 o'clock. I'm like, you know what? I can miss a half. What's going to happen? I mean, it's going to be close. It's not going to be something that I'm going to miss. It's probably going to be a fourth quarter game anyway. And what's going to happen? I'm going to go at 2:30, get at home. The kids will be screaming. The wife will be making me cut the grass or something. And it'll be like 28-0 Lions. And I'll be like, oh, and then it'll be garbage time. And then I won't get to see the good plays. That's how it always goes. But I will say this. From today, I just don't want to feel like I'm wasting my time watching the Lions. And I never really feel that way. I always get excited because I know I'm going to interact with the fans. I'm going to interact with you guys on Twitter. I'm going to have a podcast to share with my friends, Vito and Jason or Adam, throughout the week. But Sunday was tough in that I truly regretted watching the 3 hours. I could have been outside, could have been getting even more tan. This tan doc here at the office could have been enjoying time with the kids, and I don't want to feel that way. I want to definitely feel like I'm getting something out of the Detroit Lions. Hasn't happened yet. Thanks, everybody, for downloading another episode on this network. Every single week, it's been great to look at the numbers to see big downloads, definitely more subscribers on all the platforms. You can find this network on any platform you can find a podcast. Podomatic, Stitcher, our website, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we're now on. So anywhere at all that you can find podcasts, definitely search Detroit Sports Podcast, and we have great content. I definitely believe our resume stacks up there with the likes of anybody else in town. Free and easy way to support us, help keep the network going. Go to our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. We greatly appreciate it. Definitely stay tuned the rest of the week. We'll play more voicemails, and we'll have a good time. Like you know it, Detroit Sports Podcast, you've just listened to the Motor City Sports Rant.
Okay, nice, idiot. F you. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.